This is Michael Popok, LegalAF, with another hot take. Well, George Santos loves the movies, and one movie he probably loves the best is Emily the Criminal, that movie about skimming credit cards and creating fake credit cards and using them as part of a theft ring, because according to a new sworn testimony, sworn letter by a Brazilian confessed thief who was caught in 2017 skimming credit cards from ATM machines using devices like skimmers that you actually insert into the machine and little pinhole cameras in order to pick up people's passwords and pins. The mastermind of that criminal scheme that spanned the United States all the way down to Brazil was one George Santos, or as he was known then, Anthony DeValder. This is not news to the Secret Service. Secret Service, when they're not busy guarding the president and elected officials, one of the things they also do is investigate financial crimes hitting the banking system around the world. And in 2017, they picked up one Gustavo Trelha of Brazil, who was according to Santos at the time, a friend of his. And they picked him up in Seattle using a skimming device at Pike's Place Market to create PIN cards, ATM cards, credit cards, and the like. He is convicted, one felony, and deported back to Brazil. In 2017, George Santos had two other connections to Trelha, a friend of his. He appeared at his bail hearing, said he was a family friend to the Kings County Superior Court Judge O'Donnell. This is all recorded on audio, which we'll play now.
Present in the courtroom is George Anthony DeValder. He is a family friend of Mr. Trelha's. Mr. DeValder lives in New York. I've spoken to him multiple times over the last couple of weeks. This is the second time that he's flown out here to assist Mr. Trelha. He has arranged an extended Airbnb for Mr. Trelha to stay at during the pendency of this case.
So what's the connection between this gentleman and your client?
They're family friends.
Family friends.
Yes, and he has been helping Mr. Trelha to arrange a place to stay here in Seattle while his case is pending.
The state doesn't show me any evidence at this point that he is connected to anyone else in terms of running this scheme. Is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Let me hear from his friend briefly. All right, sir, tell me your name. Okay, so how do you know this man?
We're family friends. Our parents know each other from Brazil. We've known each other for a few years. Lost touch. Got back into touch back in September last year in Orlando when I was relocated from New York for work into the Orlando area.
And so what do you do for work?
I'm an aspiring politician and I work for Goldman Sachs.
You work for Goldman Sachs in New York?
Yep.
Okay. And so you've rented a room or something for him?
I'm just pending your decision here so I can finalize a long extended stay apart through Airbnb or whatever website it is. Right now I'm in Brazil by the state.
And you're going to do this for him if he's released?
Well, his family is the one actually sending the money over to make sure we take care of everything that he needs and to comply for everything here, as far as support.
And where's his family?
His family's in Brazil.
In Brazil. What part of Brazil?
They're in Espírito Santo.
Okay. Is that where your family is?
Oh, no, my family's from Rio.
And you can hear George Santos there saying to the judge, who's very quizzical about this young man in front of him who claims to be a friend of the defendant who's being set for bail, that he's also works at Goldman Sachs, which we know now is a bald-faced lie. So he lied to a judge during a bail hearing, Mr. Santos, Mr. DeValder, in aid of a friend of his who was skimming credit cards, Gustavo Trelha. Now, Mr. Santos was interviewed by the Secret Service back in 2017. They found their way to Santos not because of the bail hearing, but because there was a FedEx package and a rental car used by Trelha with Santos's Florida address in it. Turned out Trelha had lived in Florida in that very house. In fact, Trelha, who has now put out a sworn statement, and we'll put that up on the screen, under penalty of perjury, against Mr. Santos says the following about Santos being the mastermind of this criminal ring. He says, I saw Congressman Santos, also known as Anthony DeValder, when I saw him on television, and that's him. In 2016, I met Santos when I rented a room in his apartment in Florida. That's when I learned from him how to clone ATM and credit cards. The sworn statement goes on that Santos taught me, Trelha, how to skim card information and how to clone cards. He gave me the materials and taught me how to put skimming devices and cameras on ATM machines. He goes on to say that Santos had a warehouse in Orlando, Florida, in which he had all of the materials. This is like a scene right out of Emily the Criminal, which Santos had all the machines and parts he needed, the printers, the blank ATM and credit cards that were going to be engraved with the stolen account and personal information. Trelha goes on under oath and says, Santos gave me at his warehouse all of this material in order to conduct the skimming. Right after he gave me the card skimming and cloning machines, he taught me how to use them. He then claims that Santos flew him, Trelha, to Seattle, Washington, where he started stealing credit card information from ATM terminals, and the deal was a 50-50 split. They would use computers to download the information, and they used external hard drives to share information, and then claims at the end, this should come as no shock, that George Santos stole money from Trelha. This is all in this sworn statement, this sworn declaration dated March of 2023 that has now been provided to the Secret Service. It was written in Brazilian Portuguese. It was translated and provided to the Secret Service, who I am sure are going to reopen the investigation related to Mr. Trelha to get to the bottom of whether George Santos is the mastermind, right? Is he the Kaiser Soze, to continue the movie reference on the aftermath of the Oscars, of this criminal organization stealing credit cards from unsuspecting Americans, stealing their money and sending it off to Brazil? And the Secret Service now has a credible sworn statement that they are now evaluating to decide whether they're going to reopen this. I'm sure the Ethics Committee of the House, even controlled by MAGA Republicans, are also going to be very concerned about this latest development in George Santos, Anthony DeValder, and all of the fraud that he perpetrated, now having one of the criminals step forward who worked under him, according to his allegations, and shared money with Santos back in 2017. And of course, you have, as we heard earlier in the hot take, the voice of George Santos responding to a judge and lying to the judge at a bail hearing for this very same person who's just sworn out an affidavit against him, claiming that he worked at Goldman Sachs when the whole world now, and he's now confessed that he never did. So the catch me if you can, lying, falsehoods, fabulist approach of George Santos, whatever his name is, knows no boundaries. And if the Congress doesn't do the right thing and take him out of his chair, then I hope that the Secret Service, now ultimately under the control of the Democrats, does the right thing, removes him, puts him in jail, and removes him from office as we make our way into the election in 2024, where hopefully anybody on the Democratic side takes that seat back in the 3rd Congressional District in New York. I do these hot takes about every day. They're at the intersection of law and politics. And on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I co-anchor the leading podcast devoted to law and politics, LegalAF, on the MeidasTouch network. And if you like what I'm doing, you can follow me on social media at MS Popok. Michael Popok, LegalAF, reporting on George Santos, the Secret Service, the new fraud investigation, and whether he's going to finally go to jail for this one.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.